Om Shanti. The first Murli of the season is special not only because it's especially for all of us who live outside of Bharat, but I think it's also special because it sets the tone for the rest of the season. It's like Baba sets the agenda for whatever is going to come through the rest of the time. And so I'll be curious to see whether that's true this year, whether these are the topics that Baba's going to pick up on. And so one of the aspects of the title that I chose early this morning was "The time for this is now." And the time for this double service, but the idea is to really think about what is it that I need to do in terms of time. The time for this is now. And whatever it is I do for myself now, that's something that will stay with me. And if I don't do it now, then when is there going to be another opportunity to sort it out and deal with it and do what I need to do? And so firstly I want to emphasize that it's really that awareness of what do I need to do now. And then I found it interesting that Baba kept using this term double seva, double service, many times through the Murli. And again, when Baba uses an expression through the Murli, it's reminding us that this is something key that Baba wants us to pay attention to. And yes, of course, the main subject was waste thoughts, and Dadi clarified it very, very simply when she said that, well, look and find what is the cause of waste thoughts. And her description was, one, the attachments, and B, the sensitivity that we have. And I'm sure that you were able to look at yourself in that context and see what's going on. But just think about this expression, double seva. And when Baba first used it in the context of those living outside Bharat, I'm trying to avoid this word double foreigners, but all of us living outside Bharat. So Baba used to use it in the context of Lokik and Alokik. Baba used to call that double service. And yes, of course, that still is there, and that applies, of course, everywhere, not just to outside Bharat, but in Bharat also, whatever Lokik responsibilities one has to do that. But this time, this definition of self-service and service of others. And when I first came to Baba, I wondered if one first had to really, really deeply become the embodiment, and then only when you were the embodiment, then you'd be able to be an instrument to do service. And I'm very glad that Baba Dadi explained that, no, if you wait till you become perfect, A, you won't get there without the opportunity for service, but B, by the time you get there, the time for service will have gone. And so it's not that you become perfect first and then do service, but service is the road by which you attain perfection. And each step as you go along, you learn. And through your process of learning, you're serving according to that quality. Whatever it is you've learned, that's what you're going to share. And so it's a natural process of learning and moving and learning and moving. And Daddy gave us this lovely example of herself, of how she feels she's a student in the morning when although she's reading Baba's Murli, but she says, I'm a student in the morning, and then I'm a teacher for myself the rest of the day, but also in the evening then, if there's an opportunity to do service, then I'm a teacher at that time. So the best teacher will also be the best student, and the best student will have the possibility of becoming the best teacher. And so in fact this balance of inside and outside, that's something that Baba, the Dadis have been emphasizing for many, many years, but now it was put in a very concise way, double seva, double service. And Daddy thought that she was going to be coming here to share in the class, and there was something that she said this morning to a small group of people, or maybe it was one individual, I've forgotten now, but it was like there was a bhatti of Daddy meeting people. For her it's quite normal, and for me, I'm not usually there with her for the full time, but I think we started literally at 8 o'clock and we didn't finish till 11 o'clock without a break, just non-stop. And at some point, as I say, was it an individual, was it a few people, I can't remember. But she used a very lovely Hindi expression, and she was going to elaborate on it. And I knew there was a very long queue outside, so I said to Daddy, wait, let's look at this in the evening. When you take class in the evening, can you clarify it? And at that time she said yes. And then by the afternoon her timetable had changed, and Daddy now has to be somewhere else at 7 and 7:30 and so on, so she won't join the class. But she then specially called me, and so in the afternoon she usually has a lunch at 3:30. You know that, don't you? She does service, and lunches last on the agenda, so 3:30 she does her lunch. And at that time she's telling me these 4 words which I've heard forever. But it was very beautiful how she clarified them. And it is funny how I've heard these words pretty often, but you know, there comes a moment when it's like, okay, now I get it. And so it was like one of those moments. And so I'd like to share the definitions that she gave, and I'm sure she's going to be sharing with you personally, but by then it will have evolved a few steps further also, probably. And so the words are manan. I'll tell you the Hindi words first and then explain. So manan, chintan, manthan, simran. And the first expression, manan. And you know, when she says all these words very quickly, then we often wonder how to translate each word so that the meaning comes across clearly. And I don't know whether you've had translations, definitions of these words clearly before, but I know for myself it was today that it became 100% clear. And so just looking at how she was describing these words, the first one, manan, and what she meant was just simply revising something in your mind. And you've heard the Murli, and Baba says, now revise it. And yes, sometimes we have Murli revision in a vocal way, and we share with each other, which is great. It underlines it for the self. But there isn't always that opportunity, maybe. But there'll always be an opportunity for me to revise things in my own mind. And I might not have a chance to revise it with 3, 5, 10, 100 other people, but I must make time to revise what I've heard from Baba in my own mind. And so, revising what you've heard, the revision, and obviously one can revise what human beings have said, and it'll go on and on and on and on and on and on, and you want to get rid of it, but it's a broken record and it's playing the same part of the song and it won't go away. But the positive side, Baba's Murli, is there one expression, one phrase, one sentence that I've picked up from the Murli and I'm revising it in my mind. And Daddy's point there was that you'll only be able to revise Gyan in your mind if you've thrown out other things. If there are other things that are occupying space in your mind, then there's no way that you're going to be revising Gyan. And it even happens as you listen to the Murli. Some things come into your mind and your mind's being pulled off in that direction, and suddenly you come back to the Murli and you've already missed a sentence or maybe even a few words and you've lost the thread. I won't ask you to put up your hands if you've had this experience, but to stay 100% focused just simply on Gyan, on the Murli, when you're there listening to the Murli. Baba described that as yoga. Daddy Kumarka had asked Baba, Sakar Baba's days, as we hear Baba's knowledge, as we hear Baba's Murli, is that yoga? And Baba had said that yes, if it's in that consciousness that I, the soul, am listening to God, and you're in that awareness and you're absorbing what Baba is saying, that is yoga. And if you're not, if your intellect has gone here and there somewhere, then how can you say that, oh yes, 45 minutes I heard the Murli and so I was having yoga. What was I having yoga with? Was it Baba? Or was it something else that was distracting me? And so the mind, manan, you can see it's totally related to this word, the mind. Man manabhav, focusing the mind in God's remembrance. So to make sure that my mind is disengaged from other things. It isn't busy. You know how for many years Daddy has really blasted this word, busy. And she says, I don't like this word and you mustn't use this word. And it's because this is what she means, that if the mind is engaged, it's occupied, it's engrossed in anything else, it's become busy. Maybe physically you're not even busy, but your mind is busy. If it's engrossed and trapped in something else, then you can't be so conscious, you can't be with Baba, and Gyan has disappeared. And so to make sure that my mind isn't engrossed in Gyan, that my mind isn't engrossed in other things, and so to keep my mind free so that my mind can revise Baba's knowledge, just to be able to revise it. And then there's this word chintan. And the word chintan again can be used on an external level, and it's related to the word worry. When you use it on the external, if I'm thinking about all of these things, then that's going to be anxiety and worry. But if I contemplate, let me use this word, contemplate, for chintan. If I take something, again, that has touched me from Baba, first I've been revising it, And it's simply just repeating to myself the things that I've liked from what Baba has told me. But that revision will then stabilize that concept within my awareness. And then if I contemplate on it, then it's going to go deeper. And I'm taking it much more slowly. And I'm able to absorb the sweetness of that as I contemplate. So, Manan, Chintan. And the same thing applies. If I'm engaged in other things that I'm contemplating, then whatever it may be, I think something's important, something's useful, maybe it's service, that's fine. All of that is important and useful. But what Baba's talking about, my thoughts are my greatest treasure. And yes, let me spend some time in what I need to be doing, but more time on what I need to be. And if I spend more time on what I need to be, then what I need to do is obviously going to be highly effective. And if I'm not being, then the doing is still the external, and service isn't of the quality that Baba would like to see, that brings results that Baba would like. And so the contemplation, am I using Gyan to engage my mind and contemplating on things of Gyan so that I appreciate deeply the beauty of Baba's knowledge? I mean, just today's Murali and Baba making us aware of how amazing are the secrets that God has revealed to us. Did I revise that through the day? Did I take the time to contemplate on the beauty of the truth of Baba's knowledge? And you can see how, certainly with the Dadis, that's their whole world. Yes, they're doing service, but their whole world is just Baba and Gyan. There isn't anything else. They don't give space for anything else. And so the second stage, contemplation. And if I've been able to do this, the revision, the contemplation, then the third stage, the churning. And then I'm really going into the depth of what Baba's asking me to do. I'm going into the depth of what Baba's secrets are, the meaning of what Baba is saying. And again, she used a lovely expression that as you churn, there are two things that come out. And that example of when you churn the cream, then the butter separates and the buttermilk separates. And the butter is nourishing, the essence is nourishing, but also the water that remains, it isn't waste. In Madhuban, they have two types of buttermilk. One is where you take the yogurt and you add the water and you call that buttermilk. But the other is, and I know in hot countries in the Middle East and in India, we use that as a drink that's very, very cooling and refreshing. But also, when you separate the butter out, and then that's usually the buttermilk you get in Madhuban, what remains, that's the buttermilk, and it's cooling. And so the two things that happen through churning, you're able to draw the essence. And when the essence of Gyan is clear in your intellect, you have the power of that, but also the expansion, the detail is there. And when you keep all the detail of knowledge also with yourself, it keeps you cool. It stops you getting overheated. And think about all the situations in which you get het up in which you get heated, overexcited, and none of those situations are healthy for mind or body, right? If you let the mind get overheated, nowadays all the machinery on the physical level is more and more refined, so maybe it doesn't happen so often, but you still see it. Engines that overheat, and you must stop. If you insist on driving with an engine that's overheated, it's literally going to explode. And the strange thing is that we understand that for the external engine in the car, but we don't realize that we need to take care of this engine also. And so not to let it get overheated at all, but to constantly make sure that it stays cool. And so using Gyan, if I've churned knowledge, then that churning will have drawn out the essence that stays with me, but also all the rest of it is there keeping me cool at all times. And then another word, Simran. And in Hindi the expression that comes in one of the scriptures is Simran Simran Sukh Pao. The more you the word Simran is connected with Simriti, remembrance, awareness. And so in this case I'll just use the word remembrance. Whatever it is that you have in your remembrance, and if it's God's knowledge that's there in your remembrance, then you're going to be able to experience happiness. And so the happiness that comes from within is through the remembrance of knowledge. And if there are other things that I'm remembering, my mind is going to go in other ways. When Baba uses this expression, I'm the remover of sorrow and the bestower of happiness, and then we look and see the history of the yajna and the story of the dadis, well, Baba didn't remove the sorrow of difficult circumstances. It was tough circumstances that they had to deal with in the early days. Not just early days in Karachi and the opposition, but the early days in service. I mean, I'm remembering the very early days of Pune service and the simplicity, how even the basics weren't in place in terms of comfort. Not even basics. Madhavan was pretty basic, but the centers that were around were less than basic, I would say. And Chandraben remembers Daddy Kumaraka traveling third class, you know. It wasn't even a question. Even people who could afford to pay to travel first class, you didn't. It just didn't happen because your concern was first the yajna. And so you wouldn't be thinking about your own comfort at all. That was like the culture of the yajna. And so, very basic things. So, where is it that the dadis found their happiness? We've heard of the stories of lack of food in the early days of service. We've heard of stories of no possibility of getting medicine. Couldn't even buy medicine. You just used yoga power to get yourself well. And so certainly all the challenging circumstances that came to them, and yet when they describe those days, they're not talking to you with a feeling of, I was suffering. You never get that sense from them that we suffered, because they literally saw that the challenging circumstances were external, but the experience that they were having was of tremendous joy. It was just a wonderful time. a time in which they were with Baba, and that was it. Nothing else mattered. The 50s were a time of physical hardship, but they were with Baba. They could meet Baba, they could be with Baba. And it wasn't that they were physically with Baba all the time, but it was in here. So Simran, what were they remembering? When the Dadis talk about remembering Baba, and then you analyze it, then you realize that you're talking about their experiences of Bap Dada. Rarely it's the incorporeal, but more it's Bap Dada. And so for us today, when we remember, and we're remembering the beauty of Gyan, we're remembering Baba, then it's this remembrance, Madhuban, remember the scenes of Madhuban. It's these experiences that you remember, and it brings you great happiness. And as a result of remembering these things, then you come to the stage of Smriti Swarup, the embodiment of remembrance, where there's nothing else that is pulling you, nothing else that's distracting you. And so I've shared with you the things that Daddy was sharing, just in terms of the different stages, but also my own understanding and experience of these stages. And you can see that these are words we've heard, but now that I put them into context for myself more than for you even, it helps me to see what more it is I need to do for myself to be able to get to that point of just remembrance of Baba and remembrance of truth continually. When I'm with the track of Gyan, then I'm on truth. And when I've moved away from the track of Gyan, I've moved away from truth. And so what is it that Baba's asking of me? Is this what I'm doing for myself at this moment? And if I'm able to do that for myself, then yes, that's the experience I'll share with others. Whatever it is that I carry, that is the service that I do. And it happens through vibrations more than it happens through words. When you think about what it is that brought you into Gyan, how much did you understand of the course the first time you heard it? I'm sure there were some things that you understood very clearly. Maybe it was the understanding of soul and the understanding of God that was very clear to a certain extent. And that gave you the incentive to keep moving on. But it was really the atmosphere, it was the vibrations, and even though there were things that you found challenging, maybe the cycle, maybe the tree, maybe questions that kept coming up in your mind, but the experience you were having kept bringing you back to study more and more. And then at some point, things began to fall into place. But the same thing applies for when we're instruments to do service. What we're sharing in words, people will remember to a certain extent and understand to a certain extent. But it'll be your presence, your vibrations, it'll be your feelings that you're communicating that are going to be able to do service. And so I also want to talk about service now in a way that's not just vocal service. Because when Baba says double service, then how much opportunity is there to be giving Gyan? When I think about my timetable, the amount of time giving Gyan when I'm out traveling is very different to the amount of time giving Gyan when I'm at base, and at base is either Madhuban or London. And the time that's consumed in administration, the time that's taken up in resolving situations, that's Gyan too. That's service also. If I think that, well, that's not service, it's only giving class that's service, then this is the first class I'm conducting in Madhuban. So what have I been doing in Madhuban all these days? And yes, it's been for myself, but I think it's been time in a very worthwhile way in terms of service and all sorts of other ways. So I think that when you start seeing your being and your presence as the foundation for service, then you begin to look at things very differently. When Baba told Dadi, when in 1991 she'd been very, very ill and she didn't physically have the strength to say, yes, I'm coming back to London. And we were thinking when we came to India in February that by March she'll be fine and she'll say, yes, I'm coming back. But by the end of March, her physical body still wasn't very strong. And so she said to Baba, when Abhyak Bab-Dada was meeting her, Baba, what will I do going back? I need to stay here now, Madhuban. I don't need to go back to London. And Baba said, just your presence does service. And that gave her tremendous inspiration, and she came back to London, and that was the start of Global House, actually. And the amount of service that that soul as an instrument has done is just infinite. So is my presence able to make a difference to a situation? If I'm not present somewhere, is there going to be a gap that's there? And yes, Baba's responsible, Baba will do whatever it is. But my presence or my absence, what difference does it make? You know, there's a very simple way in which you can see whether you're effective or not. And if people are happy when you arrive, that tells you something. Or when people are happy when you leave, that tells you something else. And so, what is it? Is it my presence that's making a difference, or is it my absence that's making a difference? And so my presence means being, just simply being with Baba and doing the things that Baba's asked of me. Then whatever it is that's coming in front of me, to be available and to be able to do it. And to know that there's good reason for whatever it is that's happening at that moment. Very often we're here in one place, but our minds are somewhere in another place. And you know how people often talk about being in the moment, being in the present. And of course, the perfect example of that are the deities. No history, no stories. They don't remember how they got to Satyug. If they did, they'd maybe remember the long years of effort they had to make. But they don't remember the stories, they don't remember the history. And they don't know the future. And they're not worried about the future. They're totally innocent and carefree. And that's how it is, totally carefree. And where they are, that's where they belong. They're not thinking about any other continent, any other place, because it's just Bharat anyway. And so it's a perfect example to look at and to see, do I have that sanskar of being able to be free from histories and stories and just be here at this moment and enjoy the beauty of this moment? and not think about what had happened before and what's going to happen tomorrow, but just be here. And at this moment, knowing that Baba has put me here and there's benefit in this for me at this moment. So if I'm stable in that awareness of the present and the benefit of the present, then my presence is going to be giving benefit to others also. If I'm thinking, why am I here? I should be somewhere else. I'm not benefiting. But is it possible for me to give benefit to anyone else at that point? If I'm not taking benefit, then what benefit am I going to give to anyone else either? And the other question that I had when I was just reflecting on this word service, it's something that you find people often say. It's easy to serve people out there, whether you're giving them the course or you're giving them lectures, giving them workshops, whatever it is, a little bit of gyan here and there. But it's not so easy to serve lokiks. And even more difficult than serving lokiks is serving Brahmins. Yes? And the answer for serving lokiks, that Baba's often explained, that lokiks are only going to be served when they see the fruits of your effort. And when they see transformation in you, then they see your happiness, they see your joy, they see your lightness, the changes that you've made in you. They see that and they say, there must be something here, because they know you pretty well. And without that transformation, they're not going to want to take gyan. But they see the transformation and they'll say, yes, this is also what I want for myself. But the challenging one, how to serve Brahmins. And I found the answer in today's blessing. Very, very beautiful blessing from Baba today especially. And the blessing from Baba today, I hope you had time to revise it and contemplate and churn. And the sentence that really stood out for me absolutely, to be able to absorb virtue is the way to be able to bring benefit. And so when I take virtues in all situations and from all people, then in that situation, yes, I'm going to be able to have an attitude of benefit and benevolence. And the day after Baba's Murli, somebody telephoned, and first they were just sharing some news. And then they commented on a person they were having a challenging interaction with, and they commented on what this person was doing. And the person phoning had been telling me how much she'd appreciated Baba's Murli the night before. And then I said, well, isn't this what Baba talked about in the Murli? That even when Baba saw somebody with a fault, then Baba didn't keep thinking about the fault, but rather Baba gave them love. And Baba gave so much love that they were able to be empowered and they were able to be uplifted by Baba through that love. And yes, the challenge is, can I truly follow in the Father's footsteps and do the same? And when Baba's saying, follow the Father, that's what Baba's asking us to do. And so today's Murli, I see them make a mistake and I don't like it. And if my reaction is of distaste, am I going to be able to be close to them and help them overcome, well, my vibrations of distaste or dislike is going to cause a gulf. But I see the mistake, but I also continue to see the goodness of the soul. Within their defect, I see the goodness. And I'm focused on that goodness. And if I just keep seeing that goodness, yes, it's beneficial for me. Finding fault is my fault. But if I continue to see the goodness and I continue to give them that love because of whatever is the goodness, then I'll begin to see a transformation happening. I'll be able to give them benefit. And so I think that the service that Baba's wanting us to do now, when Baba's saying, create the sanskars of harmony so that you're able to dance together now. The dance of Satyug will happen anyway, but the dance of sanskars, and really that is what service is actually all about. Baba's touching of souls, that's happening, and it'll continue to happen at a faster and faster speed. And in any case, I've often had this feeling, if there's a Brahmin and the Brahmin's soul is hiding inside whoever has come knocking on Baba's door, even if they put through challenging situations of, there isn't the same teacher to give them the course every day, they have 3 different teachers giving them the course, they survive. You find a Brahmin there still. Any other difficult situation, the center's not such a beautiful center, it's not in such a wonderful place, whatever, the Brahmin souls will emerge. The days of Tennyson Road, and the area was third rate. Now the area has become a bit more upmarket, and so that's changed. The decor, we didn't know anything about decor, and we just took whatever the landlord gave us. We did nothing. We couldn't. And yet the most incredible Brahmin instruments for world service took birth there. So external things don't matter. Baba finds those souls, and yes, of course, it was Daddy who was the instrument, so she did her bit. But yet you can see how if there's a Brahmin, the Brahmin's going to become a Brahmin anyway, no matter what other circumstances may happen. So can I say that I actually was the instrument to bring somebody to Gyan? Can't even actually say that, because it's the destiny of that soul. Baba had to find that soul, and Baba had to bring that soul, and the soul is Baba's child. And so what is the service I do? At this point, I think the service is that of really being able to harmonize my sanskars with others. A little group, a bigger group, a bigger and bigger and bigger group, so that then I'm able to be part of that rosary that's able to reveal Baba. And so the time is now for double service. If I was focused on just external service before, I realize now that results are only going to come when it's Baba that's doing it, and I'm simply letting Baba do the work, and I'm ready to be just a clean, clear instrument. If I was focused just on myself and being introverted and working things out, now I realize that I have to be involved with others also, so that I can see myself more clearly. Without the involvement with others, I don't have the possibility of just working on myself. And so that's the other aspect about service. Through service I learn and I become perfect. But it's also that service becomes the mirror to see myself very, very clearly. I wouldn't be able to see my sanskars, how do I know how much ego I have? How do I know how much expectations I have? How do I know how stable I am? It's the engagement with others that allows me to see any of these things. And so, the last thing that I want to focus on, the self, the service, and the serving of Brahmins by seeing their virtues and really coming together so that we're able to uplift each other and come to the level that Baba wants us, so that then Baba can serve through us and we can be the examples for others. But the last thing I want to focus on, the time is now. And when I hear Baba say, if not now, then never, Nirvabhai said it and Baba instantly picked up on it. But Baba defined it himself within that Murli. Have that determined thought now. This is what I have to do now, at this moment. It'll never ever happen if I say I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I'm not saying that, yes, I'm perfect now, but when Baba's saying no more waste thoughts, I start making the effort for that now, that attention. And if I'm doing that from now, then the accumulation of power that I generate, that's going to carry me towards that state where finally I achieve it. Can you imagine? Although we said to Baba, and I was the one who put up hands to say that, yes, completion will be maybe by next Diwali, not this Diwali, but the Diwali after. We need a year. I need a year. I don't know about you and how long you think you need, but I knew that I couldn't say to Baba genuinely that, yes, by this Diwali I'll have achieved it. And so I thought, okay, one more Diwali, and so I agreed with Dr. Nirmala, which you said next Diwali. But I'll only get there if my effort is now. If I'm saying it's going to be my effort from tomorrow, then how many more Diwalis am I going to be hanging around for? But my effort instantly to say to Baba, yes, now, and I start doing what I need to do, and time will support me and help me. Baba will give me enough time, what I need, to make myself come to the stage that I'm content with. So these are some of the thoughts that I had from this particular Murli, and in particular this expression, the time is now, and the time is now in the way that Baba's describing for double effort. And when Baba uses the word double effort, does it sound like extra work, hard work? I don't think so. I think it's just a reminder of the inside and the outside, what it is I must be and what it is I need to do. Okay. But I was especially interested in the definitions that Daddy had to share today. So in her absence, we are still feeling her presence. But these definitions, I found that from time to time, I get very clear definitions either from Baba's Murli that I hadn't noticed before, or from the Dadis. And when I get that clarity, and I'm sure that they've had that clarity all that time, but I haven't picked it up. But when I get that clarity really at some point, then it's very, very helpful and valuable for me. Okay. Om Shanti. Let's have powerful, powerful yoga in which truly this light is able to stay lit. And you can see all the preparations that are started already for Diwali. So I think it's going to be grand celebrations that will happen.